Well, Spencer, thank you very much for your time today. Thanks for joining Graeme and I on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Good to see you. So, who is Spencer Lodge?
What a question.
Can
How
you
do you
take
start
over
that? There's lots of aspects to me, what I do and where I'm from, but I'm nothing really. I've got 1 O-level, so in English, which I don't know how I got that. That was a bit of a shock. Struggled at school, didn't like school, couldn't retain information, really struggled to kind of like keep it in while I was sat in class. And I noticed when the practical classes where you were doing something, I don't know, like cooking or chemistry, when you had a Bunsen burner in your hand, I could put things together that way and store it in my brain, but everything else I failed at. And so I didn't do very well at school, struggled there, and left school and didn't know what I wanted to do apart from to be a ski instructor. Right. That was it. My career was going to be a ski instructor, which my mum and dad thought was appalling.
And where were you from? Where were you at school?
So I was born in Essex.
Essex.
I lived in Essex as a kid, and then my mum and dad divorced when I was 7 years old. Dad went to work overseas, and I went and spent some time with my dad overseas in Nigeria, in West Africa. He was in the oil industry, and then I come from a family that's quite disjointed, really, because my sister has Asperger's. Parents got divorced, didn't really like each other, but I ended up with 2 phenomenal step parents, which I'm really, really pleased with. And I'd argue they're as good a parents as my mum and dad were. So from that point of view, that's what I had. And then I remember when I was a ski instructor, so I did the ski instructor thing. And then one August, Mum came into the bedroom and she's pulled the duvet off and she's like, "Get out of bed. You've got to get a job." And I'm like, "What do you mean I've got to get a job?" I'm researching. She's like, "It's August. You're not a ski instructor in August." Yeah. And she got me, she had a recruitment consultancy, so she got me a job temping, and I was putting food in the trays in Stansted Airport and for people's, so I know what goes in there now. That's why I never eat on planes. I advise everyone never eat on planes. And then there were 3 proper jobs that I got interviewed for. One was a trainee car salesman at BMW at a dealership. One was a trainee estate agent, and one was a trainee office equipment salesperson. So this is back in 1988. And so the BMW dealership meant it came with a 316 BMW, which at that time...
I know what one you went for then.
was way more important than the job was the car, and it was red, and it was brilliant, and it had brown velour interior. But that was amazing to me. And I got sacked after a month for having the wrong attitude. And so that didn't last very long. And then I took the next job, which was the office equipment job in London. And that's where I really learned how to sell. I learned how to deal with all aspects of rejection, and in a very competitive environment. We were door knocking every morning, cold calling every afternoon, and through that experience it taught me that I could be good at something. And I knew I was prepared to work hard, and by putting those hours in, I was able to get some results, and those results gave me confidence, and I started to grow, and I naturally fit into that environment. But I remember when I first walked in the day one of the job, I looked at this whiteboard, and there was, I think it was a blackboard actually. It wasn't a whiteboard, it was a blackboard. And they had these numbers next to these people's surnames. And there was £20,000. And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's how much he's earned this year. That's amazing." And they went, "No, that's how much he earned this week."
Wow.
And I'm like, "What? No, that's how much he earned this week." And I'm like, "What do you mean this week?" I was earning $7,000 a year. And so someone earning 20 grand a year was a player, was a star, a week. And I was like, I need to talk to this guy. And he was from Scarborough. His name was David Thornton, and he was miserable, and he wouldn't give me any of his time, and he was one of these kind of kept his distance. But I was one of these 16 trainees that was going to be put with one of these salespeople after a 6-week induction period, and I was the best trainee. I'd worked the hardest, and so he wanted me.
Right.
And so then I went to work under his stewardship. And
up in Scarborough?
No. This is in London. He was from Scarborough.
From Scarborough, okay.
And I remember we were in this shitty office in southeast London, and my patch was EC3, so I had one part of the city of London. Yeah. And I'd have to go knocking on doors. I'd have to get a compliment slip. I'd have to then get the name of the office manager, come back, cold call those people every day. Same thing every day, rain or shine. Now, one of the guys I used to go door knocking with was a guy called David Kelleher, and he was just this comedian. So whenever we went into a different office, he'd use a different accent. It'd be like the German Gestapo one day, or it'd be like French guy next day. Then it'd be from some guy from Scotland. So these different accents would come out, and we would just make it fun, And that's learning to sell. That was where it happened for me. And I got to a point where I was in as this trainee, and I was earning £50,000 a year. It was like, that was just, for me, that was just mega. I thought I was a real superstar. But I was spending more than that. And I think a lot of us do when we're young. You know, the money comes in, we don't really understand it. It doesn't, you know, there's no tangible benefit to it. And so the money went straight out. And then I heard about financial services. And so I went to a recruitment consultancy in Tottenham Court Road called PMA Recruitment. And I went in, Doug Brain and John Celeste, big characters. And they're like, yeah, you know, if you want to earn more money, you got to get into financial services. And I was like, all right, fair enough, you know. And I went for an interview and they wouldn't give me a job. They said, you're 23 years old, you're too young, you know, 25 is our minimum. And I was like, yeah, no, I want the job though, you know. Bryony, I can remember her name. And so I drove home that night, saw my mum, and I'm like, Mum, they said no. She's like, okay, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm 23, they want 25-year-olds. She says, you're going to accept that? And I was like, okay, clearly not. And I drove back to their office the next day and I waited for the boss to come out, and his name was Kevin. I've waited for 4 hours for him. And we chat, and he's like, look, you're a great kid. He goes, you've got loads of energy, you know, you're the kind of person we want, but you're too young. And the coincidence that changed everything is that his father was in hospital after suffering a heart attack. My grandfather was in hospital after suffering a stroke, and they were both in the same hospital. And he drove me to the hospital to see my grandfather, and in the car on the way there, he said, you've got 2 weeks, get yourself sorted out, I need you to be in Hong Kong. And 2 weeks later, I was sent to Hong Kong, and that was the start of my wealth management world and journey and stuff. And from there onwards, you know, I remember we used to get paid a quarterly bonus. And so my first paycheck was like $3,000 or something. My second one, I think, was like 5. And then and then the third one was another 5 as well. But I got this amount of money in my bank account. And bear in mind, this is a long time ago, no online banking and stuff. And my mum sends me a fax, and she's like, Spence, I can't even believe I'm saying it, sends me a fax. She sent me a fax. She said, your company have put the wrong amount of money in your bank account. They've put £28,000 in there. So can you call them, please, and find out what's going on? And I went, no, I'm not calling anyone. If they made a mistake, that's up to them. And she's like, you're going to call them now. And so I called them, and I'm like, there's a problem. You know, I had $3,000 for $5,000 and one. I said, there's 28. You put it there by mistake. And the lady went, no, that's your bonus. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. First thing I did, bought a ticket, flew back to London to see my mates, went out and partied for the weekend in London. I mean, I spent the 28 grand literally in a matter of weeks. It was just gone, you know, designer clothes, everything. But all of a sudden I was in a world where I could earn really big money. Yeah. And that changed everything for me. It was like, right, okay, I've got to take this really seriously. And that's what I did. And then I've been living overseas now for 30 years. I've been 18 years here. I was in 9 other countries as well. So I started in Hong Kong and went to Bangkok, and then Kuala Lumpur, then to Brazil, Slovakia, Italy, Egypt, Holland, West Africa, and here. So yeah, I'd been across those 10 countries. And every country I went to, I was opening up offices and building a business. And so, yeah, that's really how it all kind of worked. But I was never an entrepreneur. I was a sales guy. Right. I was never the business owner. I was the number 2 or 3 in the business.
And this was all financial services?
All financial services back then. And then in 2010, I sold my equity in that business. Took a year out, and that's when everything went wrong for me, to be honest with you, because I took a year out, and taking a year out when you're as busy as I am is dangerous, you know, because after 6 weeks of seeing all the people I wanted to see, I got bored. Yeah. And I got bored, and I became self-destructive, and I became depressed, and all of those things that go on. And then a year later, I said I'll never get back into financial services, and I set a wealth management company up here, and the other businesses that have spawned from that since. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the journey.
So the wealth management company then here in Dubai, what does that do? What does that entail?
So we own a company in the DIFC, which is a high net worth individual wealth management company. So there's only a few companies that have a Category 4 license here. Category 4 means you can provide wealth management advice in the DIFC. So the regulations are really extreme in DIFC. Everything outside of the DIFC is nonsense. Right. There's no rules and regulations around stuff. There's the insurance authority, there's the Emirates Securities and Commodities Authority, and you're allowed to sell the products that they tell you to sell. But in the DIFC, you're responsible for the advice, and so you can sell anything you want, but you're responsible for the advice, and so it's on you. Yeah. So it's a much more open in terms of what you can do for somebody, but you're fully responsible for anything if it goes wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And is that insured as well? I mean, how do you get insurance for that? Is that something that's specialist here?
So from an insurance point of view, which part of the insurance do you mean?
Well, you know, I mean, from
The advice.
So
yeah,
advice.
advice insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we obviously have to insure
Yeah.
that part of the business.
Yeah.
But I also own an insurance brokerage as well.
Oh, do you?
And so the insurance brokerage, a few years ago, medical insurance became compulsory here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'd seen that industry here, and it was a bit of a dirty industry, to be honest with you, because there was the same amount of commission as a percentage paid on every product. However, lots of people were giving backhanders to the clients and big discounts and stuff. And so it was just, is it an industry worth being in if it's going to be a race to the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
But we decided that we'd go about it a different way. We started to provide medical insurance for companies, and from that medical insurance, we then started to look at other things. And so we started to look at the well-being of people and corporate wellness, but we also looked at first aid as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the reason that happened is I was playing football. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 52.
Yeah.
And when I was 40 years old, I was on a football pitch with a bunch of other 40-year-olds on a Tuesday night in a school AstroTurf pitch having a kickabout. And there was a lad, the 23-year-old lad, and he was on the side. He said, look, my team are playing after. Do you mind if I join you? And we're like, yeah, sure, come join us. And he came, joined us, and he fell over. And we carried on playing, and eventually we wandered over to him. And someone screamed, he's having an epileptic fit.
Right.
Well, I've got a friend who's epileptic, so I know what to do. So I grabbed hold of him, put him in the recovery position, got his tongue out of his mouth, and dealt with him. And then he took this almighty gasp of air, like, and I'm like, that's not epilepsy. Call an ambulance now. And so the guy's called an ambulance, and I'm trying to work out what it is. Anyway, helicopter eventually comes because the ambulance doesn't. 20 minutes later, they take him off to hospital. And, you know, there's all of us guys, like lawyers, accountants, like normal professional people. Mm-hmm. Big sigh of relief that he's been taken care of. The next day, I called the hospital to make sure he was okay, and he died. And he was 23 years old, and he had a heart attack. Now, we could have saved him if we knew CPR, if we knew how to do mouth-to-mouth, if we knew, and we didn't. Mm-hmm. Had we done it, we'd have jumped in him straight away, had we known what to do. And so I, along with 20 other blokes, should have known better, and it really shocked me. Mm-hmm. And so then I went to learn first aid and wanted to make sure I never got myself in that position again. And then the first aid company that we have now was set up so that we could start training people. And it started off with mums. Mm-hmm. How can we train mums with their kids at school? Do mums know what to do? Yeah. And mums didn't know what to do. And then dads didn't know what to do. And it was like, well, hold on a minute here. What happens if somebody kills over in your office? Mm-hmm. Now, you can call an ambulance, and it can take, average ambulances here is 14 minutes. 14 minutes, it's gone. Mm-hmm. What can we do? And so that played a big part of understanding the insurance part of the business. And when you see insurance, it's kind of like a boring subject, isn't it, insurance? But it's actually...
Well, yeah. I don't think it's boring. Because insurance, for all aspects of our businesses, is hugely important. Mm-hmm. And when we're looking at doing any types of business, the first thing I'm thinking is, can we insure this? Mm-hmm. So it took us many years to get to that position, because it was the last thing we used to think about at the start. Yeah. Now, it is absolutely fundamentally the first thing we're doing a deal at the moment in the UK, and we're on the phone to our insurance company saying, look, before we look at this, is this insurable? Yeah. Because it's a boring, but actually I've got right into it myself. But
we see people that in the city in London. Back when I was a kid, people were either a stockbroker or an insurance broker.
Yes,
and they'd walk around with the kind of leather-bound, these satchels under their arm around the city. I'm an insurance broker. I'm an insurance, and it was kind of like, what? I didn't really understand it. We needed car insurance.
Yes,
but insurance, as a boring industry, but something, as you're saying, is really vital. A lot of people don't get it.
Yeah.
Medical insurance here is compulsory.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, and what you see is that companies that care about their staff pay for the right kind of insurance. Mm-hmm. Companies that don't buy the cheapest insurance they can buy just to tick the box.
You get by,
But then you think about, key man, you two run a business. If one of you has a heart attack and dies, what happens next? Mm-hmm. How are you replaced? And it's not how are you replaced in the family, it's how are you replaced as a skill.
Yeah.
How do you bring in, if one of you's the financial director, how's a new financial director brought in? Where's the money coming from? So there are all these different things, and so insurance then really expanded for us. And the industry, the medical insurance industry, the renewals are 50%. So half of your clients renew. They were the statistics we got. Okay. And half go somewhere else. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we had this stroke of luck that happened to us where two guys walked into my office one day. They said, we've got this piece of software. We can't monetize it without an insurance brokering license. Would you consider doing something with us? I was like, show us the software. Anyway, it was a piece of HR planning software. So it enabled companies to run their HR management, okay? Holidays and sick and all that kind of stuff, yeah? But they'd built it, but to make it work, they needed to put that into companies and then monetize it by selling insurance. So I bought the company from them rather than get them involved. I bought the company from them and I started to give the software to companies for free. So I had a team of people knocking on doors saying, do you want some free software? Helps run your admin, helps run your HR. The only condition we put on that software was, if we give it to you for free, can we compete for your medical insurance when it comes up for renewal? And obviously everybody said yes. Yeah. But when it came up for renewal, they're now using this software. They love this software. It's free and it's helping their business be more efficient. Of course we can compete for it. Yeah. And more than likely we were going to get it. And that then enabled us to increase that 50%, which is around 92% now for our business. And when you think about any business, it's recurring income that I'm always interested in. Yeah. And so if you sell a medical insurance policy for, let's keep some numbers simple. Let's say it's $100,000. There's 10% in it as commission. So there's $10,000. So let's say the three of us work as a team. We all go and sell 12, one a month each. Okay, so we've got 36 deals we've done in year one. Let's say it's all the same. That's 360. Well, January the 1st next year, as long as we've looked after them, most of them are going to renew anyway. Yeah. So we've got the 360 next year, even before we've lifted our finger. Yeah, and so then let's say we go and do it the second year, that's 360 for year two. Well, that's 720 already at the beginning of year three. And that's what's happened. Yeah. So we brought in corporate wellness during COVID and started to focus on getting companies to understand how to deal with the well-being of their employees, how to make sure they feel good about themselves, how to make sure they understand what to do. But also, there's lots of people that struggle with their health. What can we do to, give people health screening? What can we do to understand really how to help companies keep their employees engaged and make sure that they stay and they don't leave for a pay rise, a bit more money down the road. So all of that science comes into it, and we've got this wonderful team of people that do all this kind of stuff, and nurses and stuff that work for us that are the kind of the epicenter of understanding that and caring for individuals in as many ways as possible. And I don't like to talk about mental health loosely, because I think it's quite a serious issue, and I think it has been used quite loosely over the last few years. But that's, if the employer understands how to really keep their employees engaged, and it's matriarchal more than patriarchal, unfortunately, in most cases, then you find a way to keep those people growing and evolving within the business. If it's just a job and they just get paid a salary and they take the money home and there's no other benefit than that, then where's the loyalty,
So is it mainly just the corporate market then, or do you actually do insurance to individuals?
Yeah, so we do insurance to corporates and individuals. We have to give, because of the amount of business we have, we give probably around about £15,000 to £20,000 worth of commission a week away to a competitor of ours, because we just can't process it. Right. So what happens is, let's say you're clients of ours, and you're like, Spence, I've just bought myself a new flash car. Can you insure it? Yeah. We can, but we don't want to. Right. So rather than you're our client, rather than say no, okay, we make sure that the insurance is done, but we just don't want to handle it ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, in terms of the recurring income, the recurring revenue, that's interesting, particularly in the insurance market. One of the we interviewed somebody from the UK just not long ago, maybe a month ago or something. January. And they're one of the largest insurance brokers, car insurance brokers in the UK, and that was very much part of their model. Was they have their own insurance business, which they grew into that and own it themselves now, but they were a brokerage and searched the market. And what they done was, their real focus was on retaining the client, particularly the ones where never had a claim, no issues, drove their car well, looked after it, just wanted good insurance policies. And that, they've really seen the benefit of it, and particularly during COVID, when nobody was driving their cars, there was no claims coming in, so they've seen huge growth. Very honest, actually, in terms of responses. He was very honest. And what they'd done. But their business model had been very much on, and they grew out of, because they were a brokerage, they were seeing the insurance companies at the end of the term bumping up the premiums, just for no particular reason, and blaming it on X, Y, and Z, inflation and all this stuff, but really just taking advantage of the position they were in. So they decided to go against that model with their own insurance company, and that seemed to be really lucrative for them. So I don't know anything about it.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, if you take something like medical insurance, it's really challenging because let's say you have a company and you've got 100 employees. If women get pregnant, that's actually quite a risk to the insurance business. Yeah. But the hospitals here are really, really dangerous for insurance companies. Because have you been to hospital here?
We have for
checkups.
So I've got the flu. I don't feel very well. I go to the hospital. Let's say I go to the Mediclinic. Yeah. Let's say we go there. You walk into Mediclinic. Oh, I don't feel very well. I've got a bit of a chesty cough. I've got the flu. I'm a bit bunged up. Okay, come, sir, sit down. Yeah? Before I know it, I've got blooming blood pressure going. I've got blood tests going. I've got urine tests going. I've got a finger up my bum. That kind of stuff. It's like it's all going on, and then this is what you need, and you leave with a carrier bag full of medicine. Yes. Okay, and you had a runny nose.
Yes.
And so the hospital is making a lot of money out of that, so they want you to come in, and so you have to find the balance between. And this is the employee, because the employee goes, well, I've got this insurance card, so if anything goes wrong, I'll go to the hospital. Yeah. So you've got to find a way of managing that balance between telling the staff, look, don't be wandering in every time you got a runny nose, okay, but also caring for the fact they may be poorly. Yeah. But the hospitals make a fortune, and that pushes up the rates. So with the corporate wellness that we do all the screening. Right. And by doing the screening, we're then helping the insurance company analyze the employees to reduce the insurance rather than push it up. And the claims ratios on some companies are nuts, like nuts. And you take into consideration, and there'll be people in uproar if they hear this arguing with me, but if we have pregnant women in our business, we have maternity leave, which we still have to pay them. We have increased medical costs that take place, but massively increased. If you actually look at the difference between male and female claims with hospitals, men don't go to hospital very often. They go to hospital when their wife drags them to hospital. They're like on the sofa going, I'll be all right. And the wife eventually grabs them by the ankles and says, come on, you're going. Yeah? Because they don't want to deal with it all. Whereas women, based on the statistics, so there's nothing other than that, women go to the hospital way more often, or to the doctors way more often. And so from an insurance point of view, and a costing to your business point of view, and then maternity leave and all that goes with that, you have a key member of staff, and all of my businesses are run by women, just so you know, yeah? You have a key member of staff that goes off, and they're off for 6 months or whatever the time is for maternity. It's a real risk to our business because you've got to find somebody to step into those shoes and fill them and be efficient with that business. So yeah, there's lots to it, and for me, it's a fascinating industry,
So from financial services through to insurance now, and looking after that, what else are you involved in? Anything else? Yep.
So we have the financial services business in the DIFC. We have the insurance business in Business Bay. We have the corporate wellness company that's called Safe Hands. Okay. I invest and advisor to the board for a smart farming business in the UK and Holland, which I love. So it's really, again,
the vertical farming.
Vertical farming stuff. Yeah, man, that is just what an amazing industry. Yeah. So I've got quite heavily involved in that, which I quite like. And I only get involved in businesses if I'm really interested in them. So there's a prop tech company called Asset that I'm working with at the moment. And this was a techie lady, like a proper techie lady, that wanted to buy off-plan property here in Dubai. Right. And so she wanted to invest some money. She went to speak to a broker, went to speak to another one, went to speak to another one, and they're all given her different information. And she's like, well, how do I know that you care about what's in my best interest? Yeah. You just have your pockets that you're lining, that you're worried about. And so that led her to a space where she was like, what do I do about it? How do I automate this process? And so as a computer scientist as she is, she decided to build some software so that rather than relying on a broker to tell her what the best property was, analytics and data could tell her that. And so that company is called Asset. And so what the investor does, they go in, they put all of their information onto the platform, and the platform selects for them based upon their data what are the best investments for them to make in terms of off-plan property. Right. which is fascinating when you think about it, because I've been here 18 years. I would say less than 3% of the real estate brokers in this town are worth having a conversation with. Okay, only 3% I would entertain an investment conversation with. Most of them commission only, have no regulation, get paid on the sales they make. They are under huge pressure from their employers to turn around business pretty quickly, and they get a lot of them get very limited training. And so because of that, it's only going to lead to that kind of problem anyway.
Yeah.
But with Asset, this business that she's been building, it's just like, I don't want people to suffer what I suffered. And when you see someone that identifies a real problem that they experience, that's when I think great businesses are formed, aren't they? You know, you see a problem. It's like, how do I fix that problem? How do I solve that? Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So in terms of your businesses and multiple businesses that you're involved in, have they all been, other than the software company you bought for the insurance business, have they all been like organic growth? We've built our businesses
on acquisitions,
mainly through business acquisitions over a number of years, and that's how we've managed to get to the level that we're at quickly. You know, we've done organic, but organic's been slow for us. Yourself, in terms of how you've got to where you are, and I suppose going forward, how have you got here, and what's your plans going forward?
Okay, so traditionally in up until 2012, the industry, the world that I was part of, is you took your money off the table every year.
Yeah.
So you had two choices: you either leave the money in, build the business, or you take the money off the table. And so we took the profits off the table every year. With the company that we established, which is called Finsbury Associates, Finsbury and all of the business under the Blue Sky Thinking Group, we built that group to sell.
Right.
So the idea was to build value into that business and then sell that business, and then identifying who was going to be a likely buyer. So a likely buyer for us is either a bank or an insurance company. That's a likely buyer for us. Not that it will end up, it could be a myriad of other things, but that's what we thought. And so the plan was to get the business to a valuation and sell it at that valuation. And so we've always done that. Now we haven't acquired businesses along the way because we haven't found any we would consider ever acquiring.
Right. And is it just based locally here, Dubai or UAE or GCC, or is just
all here in the UAE, but with some tentacles into Saudi as well?
Okay, right. So you haven't seen any. So it's all been organic growth then to this point.
Yeah. Again, I stepped away from the businesses in 2016, and so my business partner Danielle runs all of the group now.
Okay.
I go to the office once a month.
Okay. What do you do?
So I two things. I've been running a podcast now for the last 4 years, and so we're 260 episodes in. So I've been spending a lot of time with that, and then from the podcast, I was then able to make a documentary on human trafficking, which is something I care about a lot. And we traveled around the world and followed the journey of 3 heroes that have gone to fight human trafficking in Bangladesh, in Nepal, and in Holland, in Amsterdam.
Right.
And so that became my focus. You know, I've always been smart in terms of understanding money, so I understand how to create recurring income for myself. So I haven't really needed to work for a long time.
Right.
But being able then to focus on things changed everything about my life, because I was the guy. If you'd have seen me 10 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd have the fancy watch on. Okay, I'd be the arrogant, obnoxious shit. I think I was amazing and all that kind of stuff. The fancy car parked outside, all those things had some form of significance. They don't anymore. They literally have no significance, because I've spent time in communities where 9-year-old girls are forced to be prostitutes, where children have nothing, not even food. And so the opulence that exists with this environment here in Dubai and the kind of stuff you see is something that I'm very challenged by now. Because there is so much suffering that's taking place. I mean, when the documentary comes out, you're more than welcome to give me your thoughts on it. But it enabled me to understand that money wasn't the most important thing. Building a successful business wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was to be kind. And if everybody could just help one person, the world's problems would be solved. And they're not, because everyone's me, build. And entrepreneurs, I find this a lot. Entrepreneurs, they're in that kind of growth phase for a long period of time, and not many of them step away and remember how lucky they are, because they haven't got anything to compare it to. What they're doing is they're comparing it to the next successful person or the person that's more successful than them, and looking at them going, I'm not as good as you yet, so I'm going to keep fighting. It's like, how much do we really need, you know? With people that have lots of houses that they live in, it's like, I've done that and I didn't live in them.
I know.
You know, I had houses in Cyprus, I had one in Florida, I had one in Portugal, I had one in Courchevel, and it's like, I never used them. And it's like, so it's like, I've got these houses because it was a great idea at the time, because you know, because it fed into my significance. It fed into my sense of well-being, you know, and my value system and stuff. And now it doesn't. You know, I have a lady called Maria here that's taken 700 children out of the slums of Bangladesh and educated them and given them a future. And she's done that by breaking 10 Guinness World Records. She was the first person from her country, Portugal, to climb Everest. She's swam the English Channel. She's gone to the North Pole, the South Pole, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I look at me and I'm like, I'm nothing. That's a real successful person. That is somebody that really epitomizes success to me. Because you all know, just as well as I do, is if you have another $1 million, what real difference does it really make to your life? You know, you say, yeah, if I had 100 million or 1 billion, you know, it would make, but does it really? We still don't go on holiday all of the time. We still, if we're going to go on holiday with the kids, and you've got kids and so have I, we make time, and it's in the school holidays, and it's usually to do things that engage them as well. And so it's to the typical places. Now you might be in the 5-star rather than the 4-star Maldives hotel, but really, does it really matter? But when you've got no sense of gauge for that, it doesn't. But when you have a sense of gauge, and when you have an ability to have that comparison, you know, we were filming in Nepal. This community we went to, they have nothing, like nothing, not even electricity, have nothing. But all of the girls have mobile phones to get customers because their parents make them sleep. And it's like 9-year-old girl, and I'm with them. I'm sitting with them. I'm talking to them. 9-year-old girls. The Prime Minister's office then contacts us. And then we go and meet the president of Nepal because she wants to hear about this problem. And you're just there and you're like, why did I spend all of these years not getting any of this? You know, all of the energy that I've had, and so many other entrepreneurs at building businesses, you know, we face rejection, we face challenges, don't we? We know we get knocked down and we climb up and we build again, and we face all these problems. And it's like, we've got all of these incredible skills to deal with adversity, these skills to deal with rejection and heartache and those psychological highs and lows that all three of us have been through all over those years. If we actually spent a bit of our time focusing on one day a month focusing on how we could help these people, a lot of these issues would be solved. And so that's where my mind and my energy have gone over the course of the last few years. That doesn't mean I don't work at all. No, it doesn't. But entrepreneurship for me, if it's just about making money and having the bigger house and the, you know, the bragging rights, I think that's a really shallow thing personally.
You know, we were just talking about that this morning. This exact conversation this morning, not just about philanthropy, but making a difference and doing something. You know, really doing something, really being able to achieve something other than just money and wealth and all that stuff. And so that's something we were really trying to get under the skin of this morning. We are involved in a number of charities, and we were talking about how when we first started out, we didn't have any money, so we just had time. So we gave time, always thinking the actual fact, really, to make the bigger difference was to be able to give more money. So then, as you evolved over the years, we can give a bit more money, but we've not got the time. And we were talking about we were just going through that whole process. Whereas you need to give, you know, you can give, the more you can give, great, but actually the time and profile, what you're saying around the, you know, documentary that you're doing, all of awareness and just, you know, and trying to get other people involved in it. We
find that more rewarding.
We're really what's the difference now? You know, we've committed significant funds to Codwell Children, and that makes a massive difference. You buy a wheelchair for 25 grand. I mean, it changes the kid's life.
Know, they can go to university. They can.
But if you can get other people involved in it, and you really, there's more people, and that's why there's certain charities that we've picked. That our daughter has, that she's type 1 diabetic. She got diagnosed when she was 8. So that's again something. My brother died of cancer when he was younger, esophageal cancer. So again, we've done that. So we've had various stuff that we're involved in.
Yeah, we do a lot for homeless.
The homeless as
on
well.
On the back of the property side of things. So, you know, we were just saying how many nights have we took people home and gave them accommodation, you know, and then they disappear the next day because they don't know how to accept it. And, you know, and there's a struggle.
But it's not just about the money. It's about
the reward.
How can we make the biggest difference? And it's not just financial. And I think that's great. So how did this come about for you?
The podcast.
Podcast.
So when we started the podcast, I didn't want to do a podcast. I was kind of anti it. But we started it, and it was like, So it was about personal development at first, and I don't know how many episodes we were in, maybe 10 episodes in, and Tony Robbins was coming to Dubai, and I was able to get him. He came on the show. I then was able to leverage Tony and Tony's name to get other big guests. But after a while, this kind of rags to riches story that all these guys have got, just bored me.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, you know. And it with Grant Cardone, and I'm good mates with Grant Cardone and Gary Vee and all these wonderful people. But then I interviewed a guy called Nick Yaris, who was on death row for 12 years for a crime he didn't commit. And I interviewed him, and I didn't speak for 45 minutes because he told this story so beautifully that I was just like, in that moment, I'm like, this is what I want to learn about. Right. These are the stories. And then the next story was a guy called Alex Lewis from Oxford. He had a girlfriend and a son, worked in a bar, good-looking dude, felt poorly one weekend. Girlfriend went out to work. She came back on Monday evening. He was in and out of consciousness. She drives him to hospital. And by midnight, they've amputated one of his arms. By the following morning, both arms, both legs, his mouth and his nose have been amputated. So he's gone from this handsome dude to a guy now without any limbs, literally face been because he had sepsis, The journey, the story is long, but I'll shorten it down. He said to me, I didn't start living until I lost my limbs. I'm like, what do you mean by that? He said, I worked in a pub. I was existing. Yeah. He said, you can keep my arms and my legs. I don't want them back. And he's gone on now. He kayaked around Greenland. He raised enough money to give prosthetic limbs for every child under the age of 7 in the UK. He built a wheelchair factory in Ethiopia. He climbed a mountain in Ethiopia with no arms and no legs. And this guy is alive and on fire like you wouldn't believe. And so that story just really seeped into me. And then the next interview was Annika Lucas, who, when she was from Belgium, when she was 6 years old, her mum sold her into a paedophile ring. And every weekend from the age of 6 to 11 years old, she was raped by politicians and businessmen. And she tells the story. And as she tells the story, I'm just crying my eyes out as I'm hearing this story. And those 3 stories in literally the space of 3 weeks or whatever it was, 4 weeks, was just like, this is what I want to be involved in this. Right. So then I meet Maria, who lives here, and I hear about her story and what she's done. And it was just from that moment onwards, she said to me, would you like to meet some of the girls? And you've been to the Mall of the Emirates, yeah? Yeah. So she says, let's meet some of the girls. I said, okay, Mall of the Emirates, great, no problem. So I bring them down. I said, so these girls come running over to me, like kind of 8 to 12 years old, all give me a hug, excited to see me. I said, come on, let's go get ice cream. And she just went, hold on a minute. They've never had ice cream. I went, what do you mean? They've never eaten ice cream, so maybe not ice cream. I was like, what? I said, okay, let's go to the fun fair. We went to the fun fair and in the shopping mall there, took them on the rides, never seen anything like it in their life. The faces were amazing. I was buzzing. And I sent out an Instagram story post and I just said, is anyone got 3 hours free for me? I don't care who you are. If you follow me and you're in Dubai and you can come now, I need some help. So this guy called Loai, who owns a real estate brokerage called Provident, he's like, I'll come now. He came straight away, and I said to Maria, what can we do? I said, can we help out in any way? She said, yeah, they need to get stuff. I said, okay, let's go to Carrefour. So we got to Carrefour. We got Loai and I had 2 supermarket trolleys each. We went in. I said, Maria, what do they need? She said, everything. I'm like, what do you mean? She went, everything. I went, everything. Where do I start? She's like, at the beginning. And I've got these 12 girls, Loai, and 4 shopping trolleys. And I'm like, girls, get yourself some pair of trainers, please. And they're looking at me like, what to keep? And I'm like, get some pajamas and whatever it was we needed to get, sanitary towels and all this kind of lady feminine hygiene products, all that. But everything that they needed. Okay, we spent the next 3 hours in Carrefour getting all that stuff, and it was one of the most moving experiences of my life. And I will always have a lot positive to say about him, because he dropped everything and he came and helped these kids. And since then, those children and I are bound forever. They're bound. They're 16, 17 years old now, so they're much older, and they're bound to me forever, and they forever will be. And Maria now has 70 children here. She's got 20 of them living in a 2-bedroom flat with her here, and she's a hustler. If you transferred her skills to business, she'd smash it out the park. She'd make Jeff Bezos look like a beginner. She is a hustler in ways that because she won't take no for an answer, you know. And when she gets rejected, she goes on to the next one, because she's got to get scholarships, she's got to get food, she's got to just everything she has to do. And she's not a registered charity here, so she can't raise money.
Right.
So she has to go about it in all other kinds of ways. She brings these girls from Bangladesh and they accuse her of child trafficking. So she has to bring mums now as well. Now, these people are from the slums. And so when I started to hear about these kinds of stories, that's why I started to get involved. And it was just really important to me. It was like, I need to do something. I'm fortunate. I need to do something. And then I realized that the payback was bigger than any deal I'd ever done. It was bigger than any money I've ever made. It was just so much bigger, the feeling. And it was really selfish, because I was the one that, you know, people say, you're so kind, you do so much. It's like, trust me.
Yeah.
You know? And people get depressed and they take antidepressants. That's because they don't understand gratitude. A lot of the time they say depression is helped with going to exercise every day. And yes, it is. Go and spend Sunday afternoon, okay, between 6 and 8 p.m. and have supper with those girls. That is the biggest injection of gratitude you could ever wish for. And it fires you up like never before, because you are so grateful, because you realize what you've got and how lucky you are. And that for me is kind of like my meaning to life now, whereas it wasn't for so long. And I see so many of these people making the same mistakes I did. They're in the Lamborghinis and the Rolls Royces. They're 25, 30 years old, selling real estate. It's all going off. And I'm like, guys, please don't do that. Invest the money, be wise with it. You know, you don't need to be doing that. It won't matter to you in the future. You know, living out of blooming Dior and Louis Vuitton. I'm like, yeah, it's nice once in a while, but don't make it. Your replacement for, I don't know, Mr. Byright. I was going to say then, but what would be, Top Man or whatever, Burton. But you see that, and and I made those mistakes. I just wish that other people wouldn't. But it's being an entrepreneur gave me freedom, and that freedom allowed me to open my eyes. And once I was able to open my eyes and be exposed to these kinds of people, I mean, the podcast has just been, it's been, I've met the best people ever. The documentary came from a guest on the podcast.
Did it? Okay.
He had his own TV show called The Kindness Diaries.
When is that?
We're just finishing the editing at the moment.
Where is that going to be shown then?
We don't know. We're in discussions with Netflix and Discovery at the moment. So, we don't know for sure, but it'll be Netflix or Discovery.
Okay, good.
And it's just like, I'll never make any money out of making TV shows. There's no big money in that. Whatever you might think, there's not big money in it. My time could be used if I wanted to make money doing other things. But the significance of what I've learned and the impact and the importance of it has just changed everything. Everything's changed. And I just consider myself very lucky to be able to do that, because a lot of people can't. They go through life, they kind of exist and they carry on through because, it's never painful enough to change, and, it's never good enough to stop and think. It's kind of like, and they just kind of trudge through life. And that's what's a shame for so many people, isn't it? And you know them just as well as I do. They're just kind of journeymen. Yeah. They plod through life. They get to 65. They go and live in Bognor Regis, or they become reliant on their family, and it's like, that's such a shame. Yeah. Because that's just conditioning. I know. And you either need a shock to the system, like Alex did. He lost his arms and his legs, and he went, "Wash it! I'm going to do something." Or something needs to happen for you to go, "No more. I can't live like that. I need to change."
Yeah. Totally understand. Totally agree with you. I think we know entirely what you're talking about. So when we moved to Dubai just 2 years ago, and I think it was last year. I can't remember which month was the first time we came across you, and that was with Stephen Bartlett. There was I can't remember. It was something of a CEO anyway. It was and it was at the Dubai Mall,
Dubai Opera.
Yeah, the Dubai Opera. That was the first time we came across you. I think you were hosting it that night. We thoroughly enjoyed it. We took our son with us. And when we were reading about you, you're one of the 100 most influential people in Dubai. So, again, very interesting. We just moved to Dubai and said, we need to meet this guy and see what he's about. So, that's how we came across you. And it's taken a wee while, but I think but to hear your story, really, a lot of it's very interesting because we do meet entrepreneurs that are so fixated on the work, the business, the entrepreneurs, that side of it. And for us, the whole philanthropy or getting involved in a purpose other than just money. So it's very interesting to hear what you're saying, and certainly it resonates with us.
There's a part that I have not told you about that I think that feeds into this a little bit. When I was 18, I was working in London. I was doing the office equipment stuff, and it's Friday night, 5 o'clock. We go down. There was a bar called the Minories, which was on a street called the Minories by Tower Bridge. 5 o'clock, we go in there, and me and a couple of pals have gone in after work. Guys from the city, all in their suits and whatnot, all of us. And there's this girl. And she's got this dark brown bob, these big brown eyes, and I'm looking at her. And I'm like, wow. And I say to my mates, whoa, she's nice, isn't she? Now, remember, this is the olden days. I'm 52, so there wasn't any, you couldn't do anything with the phone because we didn't have a phone in our pocket. You just had to work out, am I going to get rejected or is something going to go? So one beer goes down, a third, fourth, fifth beer, whatever it was. 3 hours later, I've got the courage now. So I go and say hi to her. And I'm like, hi, how are you? She's like, what took you so long? I was like, well, she's been staring at me for 3 hours. And I'm like, whoa. Anyway, I get to know her a bit. I ask her a bit about her job. She's a secretary in an architectural firm in the West End. And so I learn a bit about mum and dad. And then she says to me, what do you do? I said, I'm a salesman. She went, oh.
You shouldn't have bothered.
She's like, I'm like, what were you expecting? She goes, I don't know, an investment banker, a lawyer, somebody professional. I said, that's interesting. I said, does your company have clients? And she said, yeah, we do. I said, and is there people that are specifically employed by your company to find clients and bring clients to the company? She goes, yeah, of course there is. I'm like, and what if you had no clients? She went, what do you mean? I'm like, would you have a job? And she looked at me. I said, the people that bring business to your company are the salespeople. Yeah. Those salespeople are often not paid a salary. Often they're on commission and they have to face rejection all day, every day. They still have to put a roof over their head. They still have to pay for their kids' lifestyle. They've got to pay the payments on the car. Okay, all with going through those emotional highs and lows every day. And those people have to bring the money into your business so that you get a job. They're the backbone of business. Respect the salespeople. Understand what they have to go through because they're not on fixed salaries like you are. All right? Change the way of thinking. And in that moment, she kind of stopped. We dated for a couple of years.
Well, I was going to say, what happened? Did you get past? Did you get past?
And you know the funniest thing, we dated for a couple of years, but I moved overseas and it didn't work out yet. Anyway, someone said to me some years later, you know she won the lottery. Oh, and I'm like, you're kidding. He went, no, go and look at it. And so I Googled it. If you go to the Sun, I go, Sarah Newton. Sarah Newton and her family won 7.5 million quid on the lottery.
He usually says that when I say I went out with Graeme, he says, well, you won the lottery.
You really won the lottery.
Literally won the lottery. I can't believe it. The whole family did. There was 2 brothers and a sister, Sarah, mum and dad. And obviously I knew them from when I was younger. And dad used to take £1 from each of them every week to play the lottery. Okay. And so they won 7, I think they got 7 million each or something. Okay. Right. They won a load of money. Yeah. And all dad bought was a new caravan. He was a new caravan. Funny old world. Sarah Newton, if you're listening, I miss you.
I didn't mean it.
There's a whole host of questions I've got off of your story.
Go ahead. Go for it.
But it'll trigger something else by asking some of them. So, going way back to the start there, you mentioned your mum, and she's get out your bed. You're not on holiday, you're not researching, blah, blah, blah. Was she a big inspiration to you, or was that just she didn't want you to be lazy, or was there people in your life that inspired you when you were younger, to...
So, my mum is one hell of a woman, and I think women are better at business than men. And I was taught from a very young age, just by observation. My mum and dad went bankrupt. My dad went bankrupt. Mum and dad got divorced. Dad married his secretary, and my mum got her revenge by marrying my dad's squash partner. so that all happened. Right. But my mum had no money, and she had kids, and she worked 2 jobs. And I used to have to walk home from school when I was 7 or 8 years old, like walk home like miles until she would come past and pick me up. So I think we finished school at 3:20, and at 4:45, she would pass me by. Yeah. So I had a troubled time at school, but because back then people weren't divorced as much as they are now, so it was a bit taboo. But my mum worked really hard, and she's always been a massive influence on me, because she taught me to believe in myself. She taught me that hard work, will always win the day, versus talent. And she's like, you might not have this, you might not have that. She said, but don't let anyone outwork you. And that's what I was taught when I first got into sales. And so my mum has been a massive influence on my life. She still is to this day. She's without a doubt the biggest inspiration of all. And I'm very lucky. I'm really lucky to have her as a mum.
So that's answered that question. And then you've obviously seen, you're saying I'm 52, you've seen loads of changes. So the social media and the podcasting side, how do you think, that's helped your business, and change along the way, because there's been huge change from not having a mobile phone to all the products that we've got today.
So here's some stats. 70% of podcasts that get started end before 10 episodes.
Yeah.
But everyone says they've got a podcast. That's the first thing. That's the first important stat. The second important thing to understand about podcasts is that people don't understand the major benefit of a podcast. To me, you don't need an audience. It's actually irrelevant. A lot of people are focused on, well, everyone's doing podcasts, so they've got audiences. Imagine if we're in business together and we sat down around a table and I said, right, let's each of us identify the top 30 people that we would like to do business with in the next 24 months. You write a list, and I write a list. We're all business partners. And we're able to get those 90 people onto our podcast and talk to us for an hour and a half. How many of those 90 people are going to be prepared to have a coffee with us 2 weeks later after having a conversation like this? Yeah. Every single one of them. Now, how do you approach them? You contact that person, you say, look, we've got this podcast. It's about entrepreneurship. You're a successful entrepreneur. We'd love you to come and share your story with our audience and inspire people like you inspired us. Everybody goes, well, maybe I can do that. Maybe I could do a bit of inspiring for the afternoon. Maybe I could fit that in. And they say yes. And so you don't have to have anyone listening. Those 90 people, if the 30 people each, would be our pipeline for the next X amount of time. And so a podcast is a brilliant prospecting tool, regardless of who hears it. Now, naturally, if you have interesting people and you talk about interesting subjects, then you're going to gather a following. Yeah. People are going to be, I resonated with that. And so that's what happens naturally. So for me, social media is essentially changed the game where in days gone by, I would push sell. So I'd go out and find clients. And then now I don't go and ask anyone for business. Now people ask me for business, and that's pull selling. And that's because of the content I create. Am I a master at it? No. Okay. Have I got a huge audience? No. There's across all channels, it's 150,000 people. It's nothing in real terms. Okay. But I've been learning a craft. I've been learning how to change the way that I approach business, change the way I approach sales. But more importantly, I now have a really, really awesome group of friends. I have people I like spending time with. I have people that I'm aligned with and that have similar values to me. And also, bear in mind, I've met people that I probably wouldn't have dinner with. You know, but that's part of the course. You know, you're not going to connect with everyone. And there's those 250 guests. I know right now, if I want to, I could phone Grant Cardone and say, mate, I'm coming to Miami. Can you help me out with X? And I know he'll respond. And whether it's him or any of the others, I know that I've been able to open up a channel of communication for some of these people that are trying to make a difference in the world where they couldn't before. And that's all come just because of my network. You know, I've been able to talk to them and go, well, hold on, I know someone that could help you with that. Whereas that couldn't before. So I think when you look at podcasting, when you look at creating social content. I think that the ones that are successful and the ones that get it right are the consistent ones. They don't stop. They keep going. They don't care what anyone says, and they stop worrying about offending someone, or they stop worrying about impacting somebody negatively. You're never going to keep all the people happy all the time.
About it not being perfect as well. That's relatable to people. When you're not going out there and you're not.
I'm a shocker. I've got no social filter. No. I really haven't. So I can't help it. You're sitting here with me right now. When I'm sitting in an interview, I'm chatting away and stuff's coming into my head, and I'm just like, but were you on heroin or cocaine? Oh, you had 6 #1 hits, But it's just like it's coming. My face is saying it, so I might as well let it out.
Good.
No, that wasn't. Yeah. It was the social media thing, because that's the kids are totally influenced by social media, and they have far more tools at the ready than what we had.
Isn't it funny how we fight it though? As we fight.
Oh, I know.
We're like, it's not like it used to be. It's like, yeah, but it's like how it used to be in the rain and the cold, making 100 door knocks. Oh yeah. Go on, kids. That's a great fun thing to go and do.
Yeah, I know.
Or sit at your desk and reach out to 100 people. It's like. People shouldn't show off their information, and they shouldn't. It's like, shut up, you dinosaur. Move on, move on. Get on with life, It's like, and then what do we all do? We slowly start to adopt it ourselves, and we're like, bloody TikTok's driving me mad. All that dancing. Oh,
next thing.
Oh, hold on a minute. This family office want to invest $100 million. It's like,
all right. I know.
You also mentioned your wife. At the start of the conversation, is she heavily involved with what you do? Graeme and I, we work together. We do projects together, we exercise together, we do practically everything together. We're a really good partnership. Do you have that?
So Anna is my second wife. My first wife, Kelly, I had 2 children with, who are 20 and 23, my girls, who are in London. Anna's my second wife. I've been with for 10 years. Anna and I couldn't be more different.
Right.
Really?
You couldn't see 2 people more different. So Anna comes from a really wealthy family. So her grandfather was the guy that took Pepsi Cola to the Soviet Union in the 70s. So the family made a fortune, or their fortunes, or whatever it might be. The family are awesome people, but Anna and I are very, very different. She is fiercely independent as I am, so that's the same. She likes different things to me. You'll see me every Saturday morning. I go hiking. You'll see me. I want to do activities. I want to climb mountains. I want to go skiing. I want to do stuff. Okay. Anna likes the finer things in life. So, but what she has done that has been instrumental is that she owns a business called the Russian Speaking Social Club, and it's a private ladies club here for Russian speaking ladies, very wealthy Russian speaking ladies, and she is a master networker, and she puts me in front of people. Like big hitters in business, very successful people, and very interesting people on a regular basis. So she says we've got dinner on Thursday night at 8 o'clock or whatever. I go and I just meet really interesting people. Now, some of those people we've done business with, some I haven't. But again, they've got expertise in a whole range of different industries and be really successful. And do you know what? They're really kind and they want to help. If they can, because they've got this knowledge and experience, and they're sitting on huge amounts of money, they want to try and help. And so that's been the number one thing that she's been a benefit. She's awesome though. She's funny, and she's a very good human being. She hasn't got a bad bone in her body. She sees the good in everybody. And I think there's a bit of a balance that goes on in our life too, because often I can be judgy sometimes. But she's like, hold on, maybe not. They're not seeing it the way you see it. Shut up.
Good.
So, is the plan for you then? Is this the base then for you, Spencer? Are you and the family settled here in Dubai? Would you move back to the UK or somewhere? You've travelled a lot in your life and lived in various countries. What's the plan? Is this it? Is it?
I think if you live in England, everyone's just so miserable.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't get why everyone's so negative. And okay, it's like people, you live in the sun, and so you're going to be happier. It's like, come and live in the sun in August,
Yeah.
come and have a week here on a sun lounger in August. Yeah. You got something to be unhappy about. I've been here 18 years. I've been overseas 30 years. I've lived here in Dubai longer than I've lived anywhere in my life, including the UK. And so for me, I can't imagine living in England. My daughters are in London. My youngest leaves university in a couple of months' time, and she's got 90 days to find a job. Otherwise, there's a job for her here.
Okay.
And so yeah, the pressure's on for her. But where else could you live? I asked this question, like, where else could I live? I was in America recently filming the podcast. It's a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in LA, in Hollywood, and it was a mess, like properly embarrassing. And I was like, this is horrible. Dagenham's better than Hollywood.
We were there 2 weeks ago. Exactly.
Well, Dagenham?
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, Dagenham as well, maybe a month ago, Dagenham. Yeah. But yeah, we were there exactly 2 weeks ago, spent just 3 nights there. Then went over to Vegas and up to New York. And everywhere I just felt. We used to love going there years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it was exciting and whoa. Didn't feel that at all. You know, and Hollywood's so dirty and people are saying you don't go out. Don't do this, you know, by the way.
It felt unsafe.
Unsafe.
Yeah, I felt unsafe.
Yeah.
I had a 15-minute walk to the studio every morning, yeah? Right. I'd come out of the hotel. The first park bench I saw was a guy sleeping on it, okay? Most mornings he'd be sitting on the end of that park bench having a shit. Literally sitting there, okay? I'd walk across the road, across the traffic lights, and then there was another homeless guy there. Now, homeless people, I get that people are homeless, but it's like, I can buy them a coffee and I can buy them a croissant, I can sit and talk to them, but have a little bit of dignity, you know? And I'll probably get judged for that as well, but anyway. But it didn't feel safe. I was walking to the studio and it didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
You know, it really didn't. And I was like, I don't know about that. And I'd never felt that in America before.
No.
You know, never felt that. So yeah. So where else do you go? Where do you think? You know, of course there's some great cities, you know. I was in Paris and on the Champs-Élysées the whole night, the police are there with their blue flashing lights outside the hotel. Like literally. And so that's you know, the swankiest part of Paris.
Yeah.
So where do you live? Where would you live? Where could you live?
Yeah.
Where's nice? I could live in Switzerland maybe. My parents retired to Cyprus. It's very safe there, and they live in Cyprus. My dad plays golf 3 times a week. Mum does yoga. They both get drunk from 12 o'clock onwards. That seems to be their life. They're in their late 70s and they're very happy. So I look at that and I'm like, mate, could I live somewhere like that where things have slowed down a bit?
Yeah.
Maybe, but I'm 52. I've got another 20 years before I get there.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah,
great point.
Totally agree. Because we were speaking about this earlier as well. We had moved to Spain a few years back, you know, we were going to do the laptop lifestyle, and we were bored out our skull.
No, I hated it.
We hated it, you know. And every opportunity we were flying back to the UK or somewhere else to look at deals, and our kids were younger then, so we were like ships in the night. You go 1 week, I'll go the next week, and
I think it's about the friends you make as well. I think if you work hard to build relationships with people, and then you have that are similar interests to you, then essentially they replace your family from back home, don't they? And their friends, because we lose all that. We move overseas and we become these perpetual travelers. We become these people that have left kith and kin behind. Yeah. And so it's like we have to start again and make new friends. And you know, I'm 52. I don't want to make new friends. That's quite a challenge for me. More than when I was 22, kind of thing. So that once you get yourself into a community of people that you like, most of them. You don't have to like all of them. You know, the kids are happy, and you know there's plenty of stuff for you to keep yourself occupied. Then I'd struggle to find where you'd replace Dubai with. You know, you know, as you know, you'll have to speak Russian soon because there's so many Russians here now. But they won't be speaking.
That's okay. You'll be speaking Russian. No, you'll be fine.
Hello, my friend. Dziękuję.
Very good. Spencer, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. I'll be calling you in 2 weeks. To go for a coffee. Yeah,
do that. Could you actually do that? Yeah, do that. Let's do that.
On a hike, we would quite like.
Yeah,
do you
like
hiking?
I
go hiking every Saturday morning. Come,
Where do you go? Hatta or?
So we go to Fossil Rock. We go to Valley of the Caves. We go to Ras Al Khaimah. We go to Fujairah, and so we've got loads of hiking routes. We go with a whole really fun crowd of people.
Oh, good.
It's good banter as well. It's nice workout.
Good. What time do you leave? Early?
So we start, depending on what time of the year, but this time of the year we start the hike about 6. Yeah. 6:30 latest, because we want to get up to a certain height so we can see the sunrise.
Oh, yeah, nice. Good.
Yeah. Very good. It's good to see. I like all that.
I'd prefer the hike than the coffee.
Yeah.
I drink coffee.
Oh, very good.
You don't drink coffee?
No, really.
Tea.
Tea.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, but thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah.